All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to unpack the crucial differences between what you think you'll make selling a house and what actually ends up in your pocket. If you're a homeowner, especially out in central Pennsylvania with an older property, you've probably done the mental math on what your place is worth, right? But the reality is way more complex than those quick back-of-the-napkin calculations. Today, we're digging into an awesome analysis from 717 Homebuyers to uncover the unseen expenses that can literally take a massive bite out of your final payday.
To get there, I'm going to guide you through 5 key areas to help you calculate your true net proceeds. We're looking at the simple math myth, the preparation price tag, the as-is illusion, commissions and holding costs, and finally, traditional versus direct sales. Let's kick things off with Section 1 and the trap most of us fall into when we first decide it's time to sell, the simple math myth. We've all done it. We see what similar homes in the neighborhood are selling for, subtract our mortgage balance, and boom, we figure that's what we'll walk away with. It's a super appealing expectation. But here's the reality check. Your profit shrinks pretty fast once you start factoring in getting the house ready for professional photos and showings, making repairs, paying commissions, and, of course, covering the holding costs while it just sits on the market. That true net number, that's what we really need to be focusing on. Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the preparation price tag. Let's see how those prep costs actually stack up. This is your classic death by 1,000 cuts. Like the source material points out, you're rarely hit with one giant, overwhelming bill right off the bat. Instead, a real estate agent walks through and points out a dozen smaller things, so you drop a few $100 on fresh paint, maybe $1,500 on replacing worn-out flooring. Then you're renting a dumpster to haul away old furniture, hiring deep cleaners, and finally, fixing that wobbly railing you've literally been ignoring for 5 years. And the kicker, you're shelling out all this cash before you even have a clue what a buyer is actually going to offer you.
And that brings us to this crucial number. Let's say all those small cuts add up to $10,000. Here's the hard truth. Spending $10,000 on prep absolutely does not mean you're adding 10 grand to your net proceeds. Sometimes that money merely brings your house up to the baseline condition that retail buyers already expect. You're not necessarily adding a premium to the house. You're just stopping people from discounting it.
So if prep is that expensive and time-consuming, why not just skip it entirely? Let's talk about Section 3, the as-is illusion. There is a massive misconception here. As 717 Homebuyers brilliantly puts it, selling as-is doesn't make the financial impact of your home's problems magically disappear. If you don't pay a contractor to fix the issue, you are still going to pay for it because the buyer is going to factor it in. You're basically just shifting the cost. It turns into a lower offer price, requests for repair credits, or you just end up with far fewer interested buyers knocking on your door. Let's look at a real-world example from the source. Picture a homeowner near Harrisburg. They've got a house with some dated carpet, peeling wallpaper, and a roof that's definitely getting up there in age. Sure, the seller can choose to just list it as is and completely ignore the roof, but you better believe the buyer is going to account for that future expense. They're either going to lowball their initial offer, or, what usually happens, they'll use it as leverage to demand a huge credit after the home inspection reveals the roof's true age. Plus, we really have to talk about the legal side of things, specifically out in Pennsylvania. Under state law, residential sellers generally must honestly disclose any known material defects. Meaning, if you know your basement takes on water during a big storm, or if you know the roof leaks, you cannot legally hide it. Now, I'm not giving formal legal advice here, but the source makes this crystal clear. Slapping an as-is label on the listing doesn't wipe away your obligation to be honest about the property's condition. Which naturally leads us to wonder, does disclosing a known issue mean you actually have to fix it? Well, no. Disclosure and repair are two completely different ballgames. You don't have to fix the issue, but you legally must disclose it. Once it's out in the open, though, that known issue becomes a major part of the negotiation. And yeah, it's going to affect your final price. Okay, moving on to Section 4. Now that the house is conceptually ready, or at least properly disclosed, let's look at the unseen financial mechanics that eat into your bottom line: commissions and holding costs. You've probably heard about the major real estate commission rule changes that hit back in August 2024. Now, while commissions have always been negotiable, this new landscape has really put a spotlight on it. But watch out, because there's a trap here. You have to be super careful not to confuse a low listing fee, like an agent offering to list for just 2%, with the total cost of the transaction. You've got to ask yourself, what does that 2% actually cover? Is the buyer going to ask you to chip in for their agent's compensation? What about brokerage fees? To give you a realistic idea of what to expect, recent private estimates from clever and fast experts showed that even after those 2024 changes, Pennsylvania's total real estate commissions still hover right around the mid to upper 5% range. Because of this, using 6% as a conservative planning number when you're doing your initial math is a really smart move, at least until you get the actual terms in writing from an agent.
And man, whatever you do, do not forget the ticking clock of holding costs. When you sit down and look at how long a traditional sale really takes, it's quite the commitment. While you're prepping in month 1, listing in month 2, under contract in month 3, and anxiously waiting for closing in month 4, your expenses do not pause. You are still paying that mortgage, still paying property taxes, insurance, heating, electricity, and maintenance. And hey, if the deal falls through after a bad inspection, that timeline completely resets, and that expensive clock keeps right on ticking. Beyond the financial spreadsheet, though, there's a heavy, unseen emotional cost. Stress isn't a line item on your closing statement, but it is very, very real. You've got the pressure of keeping the house showroom ready at all times, constantly having to leave so strangers can walk through your living room, agonizing over inspection feedback, and just dealing with the general uncertainty of whether a buyer will actually make it to the closing table. This is especially heavy if you're dealing with a vacant property, an inherited home, or if you're navigating a tough life transition.
So, let's bring all of this together in our final section and help you decide your best path forward, traditional versus direct sale. When we lay your options out side by side like this, the contrast is pretty stark. A traditional listing requires high effort, high cost, and high risk, and you're taking all that on in pursuit of the highest possible retail price. On the flip side, a direct cash sale flips the script entirely. Zero prep, zero commissions, with the focus completely shifted to speed and certainty.
If you take nothing else away from this explainer, let it be this: you must build a realistic comparison. You should absolutely never compare a direct cash offer to some hoped-for, sky-high listing price without also subtracting the prep costs, the real estate commissions, the potential buyer concessions, and the months of holding costs it takes to actually hit that listing price. You've got to compare apples to apples.
So as you weigh your options for your older central Pennsylvania home, ask yourself this final crucial question. Are you willing to navigate all those hidden financial and emotional costs in pursuit of a potentially higher retail price? Or does a guaranteed number, zero prep work, and immediate peace of mind make a whole lot more sense for your unique situation? Run your real numbers, understand your true net, and you'll know exactly which path is right for you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.